Well, hello and welcome to the Snapdragon Studio YouTube channel. My name's Jane, and today I'm going to be talking about abandoned projects, why they get abandoned, and what we can do about it. I'm so glad that you're here. Now, the reason that this topic came up is that this summer, so for July and August, in the studio, which is my online creativity club, we're not having any new projects. Instead, we're either finishing the ones that we started earlier in the year, or we are kind of rummaging in our craft drawers, in our cupboards, and finding abandoned projects and bringing them to alive or discussing them in the forum, just working out what we can do with them. So last Friday, we had the first live and lots of people brought their projects to discuss. And there was really three themes kind of came up, which I thought would be quite useful to discuss here. So the first reason that people had abandoned projects was what one of the people on the Zoom described as aspirational crafting. So that seeing something that somebody else has made or seeing a kit and being seduced really by the photographs into buying it without thinking about the skill level. So when you're sort of like down here, just beginning, and the thing that you've decided to make is way up here. Normally, this would be something that you built up to, that you sort of put your time in an apprenticeship, but somehow you've acquired this. And when you open it, you open the kit, you get out the supplies and you start, it very quickly begins to go wrong. Not disastrously wrong maybe, but just doesn't fit up with how it was meant to look in your head. And these are often projects that get abandoned pretty early on because you look down and you think, it just isn't working. I don't understand this. I can't follow the instructions. All of that kind of thing. So there are a lot of people had projects like that, and certainly I do. And it's a bit like your eyes being too big for your stomach. You're just not recognizing the amount of skill that goes into it. And it was very interesting because in the studio, the last 6 months that we've been doing is sort of like a big, really ranging project about our sort of like women in our grandparents' generation. So women who were sewing, crafting, making homes, whatever, 1920s to the 1950s. And as part of that, I wanted to make a needle case. And very aware that people within the studio are from a wide range of crafts and a wide range of experiences. Some people are just starting their journey making things. Some people have been crafting for 30, 40 years. But I decided that with the needle case project, we would spend the month before actually experimenting with very simple embroidery stitches, running stitch, chain stitch, tent stitch, all of these kind of really basic stitches. And to be honest, at the beginning, I thought, maybe I'm just teaching a granny to suck eggs. Maybe I'm taking it down too much. But what was really interesting was some people started embroidering having never picked up a needle before. I had a wee video on how to thread a needle, how to tie a knot. And they found it really, really useful because it demystified it. But what was really interesting was that a lot of the people who had been embroidering for decades actually found it really interesting to go back to basics and see how much you could do with a running stitch if you took yourself out of the mindset that you knew everything. So that was really interesting. And I think that what you need to do with these abandoned projects, which are really at a skill level higher than you are, is, if you want to still do them, obviously, because this is always the question, do I still want to make that? It is to regard that as the destination piece. Take a few steps back and work out what it is that you need to learn before you pick that up again. You know, is it an embroidery technique? Is it something to do with knitting? Do you need to learn bookbinding? Whatever it is, write that down and find a way of scheduling that in. Borrow the books from the library, see if there's any classes, so on. That will solve that one. Excuse me. The second reason that things were typically being abandoned was that they had been workshop pieces. So, for example, somebody would have gone along to a workshop, and whether it was sort of like an afternoon workshop or whether it was a week-long residency, they'd been making something there. And the idea would be that, a bit like finishing your homework at home, they would take it back and they would continue to work on it once they got home. But what typically happens is that the drive and the excitement that happened at the workshop, unless there is something that is bringing that kind of home in a structured way, it often dissipates and you forget what you're meant to be doing. Without somebody to ask and to show you all of the different techniques, to suggest things, somehow the energy to finish it goes. And with these pieces, I think that there are two ways that we can get around it. The first is to really honestly appraise whether these are ever meant to be finished pieces. Are they finished pieces, or are they exercises? Are they something that you make at a workshop that show you how to do things, that hone your skills, that are a bit like a sketchbook or a writing exercise? They're not the finished piece, they are just a step on the way. And if that's the case, then you might want to like formally archive them into a shoebox or whatever. Or you might just want to get rid of them. It depends on the size of your crafting space, really, and your available storage, and whether you like things about you or whether you prefer to have a clean space. But the second thing that I would say is, if you're wanting to keep them and you're wanting to continue them and there is a fair amount of work still to do, then see whether you can find a group to do it with. Now, it might be the original group from the workshop, it might be a local crafting group, it could be something like the studio, where you've still got that meeting and exchange and encouraging. And the way that at workshops, if somebody gets stuck, often it's their neighbours around the table who help them out. So set that kind of thing up. And this is what we're doing in the studio with this sort of 2-month hiatus in new tutorials, is bringing these things together and seeing what we could do. So my own particular workshop abandoned project isn't really abandoned. It's from a workshop that I did at the end of last year with the Australian artist India Flint. We made this amazing long felted and dyed and embellished scarf, and my intention was to continue the embroidery when I got home. Have I done it? Have I, Flip? And now I have so many other projects on the go that I can't see me returning to this in any meaningful way. But when I brought it out, and this getting the light on things is so important. When I brought it out, I realised it's pretty wearable as it is. Not as a long scarf, but that's partly because I cannot wear long scarves. They fall off, they trail, they get trapped indoors. But if I loop it round into a cowl and actually secure that with buttons or beading or embroidery, which would be a nice small evening's project, then I think that it would be wearable and it will be finished. I can walk away. And the third and the final one that I'm wanting to talk about today is when we have moved on from a project and we look at it and it's abandoned and there is no love there and it's almost from a different life. And in some ways, I think that this is the most difficult to cope with because we have changed and it's really difficult to get rid of things that are a past life or a past stage in life. So in this, I would include things that are maybe just the taste of a different version of ourselves. Different colours, we like different colours. We, have moved on from using certain materials. If you now knit in natural fibres and you discover a work in progress that is in acrylics, even the working with it doesn't feel right now. If it's a different size to the one that you are now, that adds on extra emotional things. If, and this is really common, it is a jumper that you started knitting for a 3-year-old who is now 19 and away at university and it is not going to fit them anymore, that also, it brings up emotions. You can't just throw it away. It was something that you envisaged them wearing age 3 and they're not doing that now. And again, what we were finding in the Zoom was that just bringing these things out and discussing them kind of made the answer really clear. So in the middle of the Zoom, Sarah, one of our regular participants, disappeared off. And she came back with this amazing shawl that she had just remembered about. And it was like from a knit along, and she had, bought the wool and she'd done the knitting, and then she decided that she just didn't like the colour and she didn't like the shape. And had she known what she was knitting at the beginning, she'd have made different design choices. And I think that's always tricky with knit-alongs. But then when she got it out, she found that it was pretty much finished. All of the knitting was finished. All of the blocking was finished. What she hadn't done was attach the tassels. Now, as she got it out, she found that it wasn't as bad a colour as she thought. It was actually a really nice colour, sort of like a dark burgundy. And the stitch and the shape of the shawl was really lovely and it showed off beautifully with these colours. So it was just the tassels that she was left with. And then she thought, well, do I even want tassels on it? So she found that this thing that had been lurking is quite a big shawl, so it'd be taking up, half a drawer. Actually, there was many good things about it. So she is away off to try it on, to strut about a bit, to see how she feels in it. And if she doesn't feel right in it, if it still just doesn't feel like something that she would wear, she's just going to find somebody else, so friends or family, whatever, who would love to have this gorgeous hand-knitted wool shawl for the winter. I think this is it. Talking about abandoned projects makes us realise that everybody has them. Almost everybody has them. It takes away the emotion and the guilt and the idea that you've wasted money or that you never stick to anything. All of these things. And it takes the sting out of them. And that is why what I would like is that you went away from this and you found an abandoned project. Just one. Not a whole heap because that's overwhelming. But just one. And you bring it out into the light and you talk about it. Comment about it here. And you decide what it is that you want to do with it. Because it might be saying goodbye to it. It might be frogging it back to its base materials. It might be passing it on to somebody else who will finish it, who will love it. It could be that it's actually in all the time that it's spent in the drawer, it has somehow transformed into something amazing. My mum has made all of my early works in progress, my teenage works in progress, into amazing cushions. Leave things long enough and they will become something comfortable. So if this kind of is something that you would want to talk about, this is the conversation that we are having in the studio. Over the next couple of months, there are lives. Now, it's a paid-for membership. It's £15 a month. And there are supported places if cash is the only thing that would stop you joining in. Because I believe that keeping our creativity, joining together, exploring these things is vitally important to everybody. So that's what we're doing. My abandoned project, which I keep mentioning, is the heirloom quilt cardigan, which I am currently taking back into its component parts so that I can make it into a lap blanket. I'll let you see how I get on. So until next week, bye-bye.